After the great results I had on day 2 of this fall trip to southern Utah, the wheels unfortunately fell off a bit when I woke up for day 3. These in-field videos are intended to share my authentic experiences, both good and bad. This episode is definitely proof of that. Whereas the previous day resulted in 15 or so portfolio-worthy images, I ended up coming away with only a few photos I'm happy with on this day. The rest are basically throwaways, mostly from my afternoon drive as I worked my way towards some boondocking options to set up camp for the night. I wasn't feeling great for much of this day, as you'll see shortly, and my photography suffered for it. Of the 7 images shared in this video, only the ones I review at the end are anything I'd consider adding to my portfolio. I quickly edited a few of the others shown during this intro, simply for the sake of the video. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered doing anything with them. Thankfully, though, the day did end on a high note, especially once the soft light of dusk bathed the valley along Cottonwood Canyon Road where I was going to camp for the night. I'm especially happy with 2 of the last photos I made shortly before nightfall. Once again, I hope you enjoy this look behind the scenes as I chase fall colors in southern Utah. Well, good morning. All I gotta say right now is I feel like shit. I'm not sick, but I've got a pounding headache. I'm a little shaky, probably because I haven't eaten enough. I need caffeine. So this morning is definitely gonna be a lazy morning, I think. When I decided to do these videos, I told myself I was gonna keep it real. Well, this is what you get. I actually slept okay, better than the night before at least. But this is definitely one of those mornings. Changing clothes, trying to do a little camp bath. I really question, I'm 45, how long can I really do this whole camping out of the back of the 4Runner thing? It's not terrible, but it ain't the best always, especially on mornings like this. So anyways, enough whining. I'm gonna brew my tea, get some food in me, and then figure out what I'm gonna do for the day. Just getting that first bite of food made a big difference. Nothing soothes the soul like food. So I'm in a little better mood. The 2 Aleve I took when I got up are starting to kick in, I think. So the head's feeling a little better. I've realized that I look somewhat like the Unabomber, which is unfortunate. But anyways, the good news is last night the horrible wind died down shortly after I ended up getting in bed. So after eating a very cold basic dinner of a turkey sandwich in the driver's seat as the wind howled around me, not too long after it started calming down, I got in bed and had a nice quiet night, which was huge. And as you can likely tell right now, this morning, wind is super calm, just the slightest little breeze. But again, just like yesterday, it's forecasted around 11 a.m. The wind will kick in, at least for this general area, until about 4 p.m. Ironically, down in Cottonwood Canyon Road, there's not a terribly windy forecast for down there. So I'm contemplating heading down that way, check out the conditions, because with the wind we had yesterday and then into the evening, I am concerned that a lot of the leaves have blown off. So I might go ahead and make it's going to be about an hour and a half to get back there to Cottonwood Canyon Road, specifically the area where all those good cottonwoods were. But check that out. My other option is I continue north on Utah 12 as I had kind of planned yesterday and head up to Torrey. But part of me wants to, just from curiosity, because I know there's some great vista views. But there's really not going to be much to photograph, especially with getting a late start like this and getting into the midday light and everything. So also, if I go back towards Cottonwood Canyon Road, along the way, I'll come across a trailhead along the Escalante River. And I believe when I drove by the other day, it had some pretty good color. So I might pop in there, maybe do a little hike to get the blood flowing and see where we go from there. I'm down here at Escalante River Trailhead. Surprisingly not very windy. A little bit of a breeze through the tops of the trees. Again, I knew this wasn't going to be the time of day, but you can see there is some color in some of the trees back here. I don't know with the glare how well it's going to show, but there's some lingering leaves in the tops of the cottonwood trees. So I'm not going to hike this right now. I'm just taking a little mosey just to try to gauge how things look. The main reason I'm not going to hike it right now is I'm wearing my slip-on shoes, and there's a little river crossing, as you can probably hear in the background. So, if I'm going to do this, I've got to make my way across there, which means I will probably grab my water socks. I don't think I brought my sandals on this trip, but I've got my neoprene socks that'll keep me nice and dry and warm, and we'll see. I can see just a little bit of color down in the distance there. I don't know, I'm skeptical of the worthiness of this. Now, as the day progresses, though, more of this will be getting into the sunlight. So these trees are all pretty well bare, but I could end up finding some situations where we've got sunlit leaves against the cliff face that's in shadow, but the cliff face is only really right in this general vicinity, and then it kind of widens out a little bit. So I got to decide what the heck I'm going to do here. Or again, like I said this morning, I'll just head on to Cottonwood Canyon Road. First things first, I'm going to make a pit stop in Escalante, or the town of Escalante, get some gas, maybe grab some lunch at that coffee shop and deli I'd mentioned. Escalante Outfitters, again, definitely recommend, not sponsored. And I may offload some video files and camera files onto my laptop to have my infield backups, so to speak. So we'll see. If you're wondering why I don't go down that path, it's not a path or a trail, and it's under site restoration. So the good thing is this water isn't very deep. Probably, I'm going to say 6 to 8 inches. Looks like it gets a little deeper in the middle, so it shouldn't be any big deal to cross over. It's a sandy bottom, so I don't have to worry about slippery rocks or anything like that, and falling and busting my butt, or dunking my camera bag, what have you. So that's the situation. We'll head into town, get the things I need to do there taken care of, and then, again, I got to make a decision. Am I going to head back here and do a little hike, or am I going to head on to Cottonwood Canyon Road? Or I could do both. There's nothing preventing me from doing both. So next time I check in, maybe I'll know what I'm doing. Maybe I won't. Probably not, is my guess. Yeah. Well, I ended up on Cottonwood Canyon Road. I used an app called iOverlander to find a campsite. Never even made it there. I ended up stopping and pinning a whole bunch of other campsites I found along the way, and found this one kind of back from the road a little bit. Not that there's a lot of traffic out here anyways, but you can't see it. There's a giant golden cottonwood tree just in the background there. And now I'm going to make some hot tea, make some dinner, a little pulled pork sandwich. I forgot to buy cheddar cheese. So we're going to see how pulled pork is with Swiss. If your ham and Swiss is good, so why not pork and Swiss? Anyways, today was a weird day. I ended up going into Escalante, like I mentioned. I did not go back to the Escalante River trailhead. Decided that there just wasn't really enough color, and I wanted to get into town. I needed to get being attacked by a moth. I needed to get gassed up. I needed to get some water. decided to have a yummy sandwich at Escalante Outfitters, and then I spent some time offloading my files from my Canon R5 and Canon R onto my laptop to get them backed up. So that was taken care of. And that took a while. And then I spent quite a while hemming and hawing over what I was going to do. I was pretty certain I was going to come down Cottonwood Canyon Road. But really it was more about what am I going to do the rest of this trip. I was looking at Zion. I don't necessarily want to go there and deal with the shuttle. I want to be the end of the world, but just not a hassle I want to deal with right now. And part of the benefit of these trips is getting away from people and being on a shuttle with full of people, kind of counter that point. Stupid reason not to go. I know. I've never been there. It's beautiful. I'd love to go there. And there's plenty of hikes I can do without dealing with the shuttle, so I might still do that. But then I started thinking, well, you know, the wind here has been just so awful, and I don't have any video from today in terms of photography or anything like that because the wind was just killer up until about the point I got on the Cottonwood Canyon Road, and then I was chasing the fading light that I didn't want to take the time to do any video. So apologies for no video, but I did get some good shots along the road here of some cottonwoods, kind of in the fading, not golden hour, it was after sunset, not quite full blue hour, but anyways, so got some good shots out of that. So that felt good. Really wasn't expecting to come out of the day the way it went with really anything, and I think I've probably got, we'll say 3 to 5 shots that have high potential, hopefully, once I get them onto the computer. So I'm still a little bit torn on what I'm going to do tomorrow and the rest of this trip. That boiled quickly. I need to make a decision. Lost my tea bag. Last I checked the forecast, and I'll have to check it again here. I do have just 1 bar. But last I had taken a look at it, up north around Escalante and Boulder, it's supposed to be quite windy again tomorrow with some clouds. So both those things combined aren't exactly great. The wind obviously makes it challenging. You know, I can shoot handheld in that, but I prefer to work slower and work on the tripod. And some compositions, or if it's early light or late light, you really need the tripod. And if it's super windy, that just ain't going to work. And then if there's intermittent clouds, that kills any chance of more reflected light down in Burr Trail along that long canyon stretch. So I'm thinking right now, there's still a ton of color on the trees in here along Cottonwood Canyon Road, which is great. It didn't all blow down with the last couple of days of wind. So I think I'm going to try to get an early start tomorrow, get that early morning soft light, just traverse the trail back and forth as the light changes, and see what I can find there. I got here too late today to try to get the backlit cottonwoods along these shadowed hillsides that I had mentioned the other day. I don't know if I'm going to stay here again tomorrow night to try to get those shots, or if I'm going to head to Zion and at least do like a scenic drive-through, maybe hike along, I think it's called Clear Creek, and the washes in there. Or I just take a complete left turn and go somewhere completely different. I'm not going to mention what I've got in mind because it could be really cool, but I may not do it. So anyways, yeah, I'm going to finish cooking dinner. Hopefully tomorrow morning we've got calm winds like this, because right now there's basically nothing. It worked out really well as I was driving down and taking those shots. So fingers crossed that this holds for tomorrow along here too. And then I got to make a decision as far as what I'm going to do the rest of the trip. This image didn't actually make it past my post-trip culling process originally, but upon revisiting it for this video and converting it to black and white, I'm now feeling a bit better about it. I'm still not convinced it's earned a place in my portfolio. It's a nice view, but as the photography trope goes, a nice view doesn't necessarily make a great photo. The cliffs on the right are quite bright, even after burning or darkening them in post, but they're also balanced a bit by the clouds in the left half of the sky. I may play with editing a bit more, but for now, it's going to remain flagged for future revisiting. As I was following the winding path of Highway 12 after my leisurely breakfast and pounding headache, I noticed a pop of yellow cottonwood trees in the valley below. Stopping at a small pullout, I framed this up at just over 200mm and cropped in a bit after the fact. This composition does a wonderful job of showing off the amazingly rugged beauty one is treated to along the scenic byway, but it's that cluster of trees that helps focus the eye within the composition as they provide the right touch of added visual interest. This photo is also unusual for me in that it includes glimpses of Highway 12, from the center left of the frame to the upper edge. I normally go out of my way to avoid including human elements. In this case, however, those elements help tell the story of the place. Now, for full disclosure, I did clone out some power lines near those cottonwoods. I wasn't able to see them when I was standing at the overlook, but in the resulting file they were reflecting the late morning sunlight just enough to be distracting. With this photo, we move into dusk, that magical time I referred to earlier when I was able to make what I feel are my strongest photos of the day. Once again, I was battling steady wind. Even though I did utilize the tripod, I still had to crank the ISO up to 1600 to counter the wind in low light. I opted to keep my aperture at f16 to ensure sharpness from front to back, and even with the ISO as high as it was, still only managed a shutter speed of 1/15 of a second. That was just fast enough to avoid most movement in the foliage in between gusts of wind. I considered the large tree in the background the main subject, and had initially composed a much tighter shot of it. Ultimately, though, I decided to include more of the foreground to include the beautiful hues of the ground cover. The lighter, warmer tones of the sandy soil and the foliage itself happened to create a pyramid shape, leading right to the golden tree in the background. By this point of the evening, the light was failing quickly. Captured just 7 minutes after the last photo, there was already less dimensionality to the scene thanks to the flatter light. Although I quite like this image, with the tree's stark branches and its scattered fall foliage, I would have preferred to have found an angle where I could have avoided the lighter patch of soil on the hillside in the background. Unfortunately, that just wasn't possible, so I tried to darken it, without going overboard, to help minimize its pull of the viewer's eye. I'm fairly certain this one will be included in my portfolio release in the future, but I'd say there's still a 10 to 20% chance it doesn't make the final cut. Although this day was admittedly frustrating to a large extent, it always helps to end such a day on a high note. Not only to help reset my frame of mind, but get ready mentally for a fresh start the next morning. And what a fresh start it was! I had 10 strong photos in the bag before lunch, and then I headed back to Cottonwood Narrows in search of reflected light as I was treated to clear blue skies for the entire day. After completing my hike through the canyon, I had a total curveball thrown my way that involved changing a flat tire and making sure a stranger got back to paved roads safely. But more on that in the next episode, so until then, take care.